Greetings and salutations. This is the Adjutant. Today I want to talk to the veterans who are doing everything right, or at least they think they are. Maybe you have a good job. Maybe you're receiving VA disability compensation. Maybe you're contributing to your thrift savings plan or your 401k. Maybe you have military retirement, excellent health care, and a stable income. From the outside, it looks like you've won the financial game. Because here's a question I want you to really wrestle with. If someone looked at your income, would they assume you're much closer to financial freedom than you actually are? That's a question worth asking because over the last 2 decades, I've had the privilege of working with thousands of veterans through my career as a VA adjudicator. I've seen veterans with very modest incomes quietly become financially independent. I've also seen veterans making well into the 6 figures who always seem to be waiting for the next paycheck. What separated them wasn't intelligence, it wasn't luck, it wasn't even income. It was the decision they made after the paycheck hit their account. One of the greatest myths in personal finance is that the more income automatically creates more wealth. You know what? It doesn't. More income simply magnifies whatever financial habits you already have. If your habits are strong, additional income accelerates your progress. If your habits are weak, additional income simply allows you to make bigger financial mistakes. That's why today I want to share 5 ways veterans accidentally delay financial freedom. Notice I said accidentally. Most people don't wake up one morning and decide to postpone their financial future. Instead, they make small, reasonable decisions that feel harmless in the moment. Then they repeat those decisions month after month, year after year, and before they know it, 5 years have passed, 10 years have passed, sometimes 20 years have passed. They're still working harder than ever, but they aren't appreciably closer to financial freedom. My goal today isn't to criticize anyone. We've all made financial mistakes. I know I certainly have. My goal is to help you recognize these patterns while there's still plenty of time to change them. Because here's something I firmly believe. Financial freedom is less about dramatic breakthroughs and more about consistent direction. Small corrections made today can completely change where you end up 10 or 15 years from now. Now, let's begin with the first mistake. The first way veterans accidentally delay financial freedom is believing that a higher income automatically creates wealth. This is probably the most common misconception I encounter. Someone retires from the military, they begin receiving retired pay, they qualify for DA disability compensation, then they land a civilian position paying significantly more than they earned on active duty. Now, on paper, they're earning more money than they've ever had before, yet somehow they don't feel wealthier. Have you ever noticed how quickly our lifestyles adapt to our income? The nicer vehicle suddenly seems reasonable. The larger home begins to feel necessary. The vacations become a little more expensive. Eating out becomes more frequent. Streaming subscriptions multiply. Monthly payments quietly replace monthly savings. None of these decisions seem particularly harmful by itself. That's what makes them dangerous. Financial freedom rarely disappears because of one catastrophic decision. It slowly leaks away through hundreds of comfortable ones. I like to think of income as water flowing into a bucket. Most people spend all their time trying to increase the flow of water. Now, that's certainly important. But if the bucket has holes in it, more water does not solve the problem. You simply lose more water through larger holes. Your financial habits determine whether your bucket holds water or leaks away. I've met veterans earning half the income of their peers who accumulated greater wealth because they consistently invested differences instead of spending it. The opposite is also true. I've met individuals with remarkable income who never seemed to get ahead because every raise immediately became permission for additional spending. There's actually a term for this that I want to point out, okay? It's called lifestyle inflation. Every increase in income is quickly matched by an increase in expense. The result is that your financial life never truly changes. You simply operate at a higher level of spending. Now, here's a question I encourage you to ask yourself every time your income increases. Will this raise improve my future or simply upgrade my lifestyle? Those are 2 very different outcomes. One creates wealth, the other creates comfort. Comfort isn't wrong. There's nothing sinful about enjoying the blessings you've earned. After years of military service, you sacrifice enough to enjoy your life. But if every financial blessing immediately becomes another monthly obligation, you'll always need tomorrow's paycheck to support today's lifestyle. That's not freedom. That's dependence wearing expensive clothes. Now, here's a simple habit that served many financial successful people well. Every time your income increases, decide in advance the part of that increase that belongs to your future. Not after you spent what's left, before you spend anything. Increase your investments before you increase your lifestyle. If you constantly do that over 5, 10, 15 years, the results become extraordinary. Now, let's move to the second way veterans accidentally delay financial freedom: waiting until life seems stable before investing. Now, this sounds incredibly reasonable. In fact, many people believe it's responsible. They say things like, "I'll start investing after we buy the house. I'll invest after the kids graduate. I'll invest after we pay off the truck. I'll invest after this promotion. I'll invest after things settle down." The problem is life almost never settles down. There is always another expense, another emergency, another opportunity, another reason to postpone investing until tomorrow. But tomorrow has a way of becoming next year. Then 5 years later, we realized we were waiting for a version of life that never actually arrived. One of the greatest advantages an investor has isn't extraordinary intelligence, it isn't perfect timing, it isn't predicting the stock market, it's simply giving money enough time to grow. Time quietly does work that no investor can duplicate through brilliance alone. That's why every year you delay investing often costs far more than you realize. It's not simply the money you didn't contribute, it's every year of compounded growth that contribution never had the opportunity to earn. Now, when I speak with young service members, I often tell them something that surprises them. Your first dollars invested are usually your most valuable dollars, not because they're larger, but because they have the longest time to work. The same principle applies whether you're 30 years old or 60 years old. The best time to begin building wealth is before you feel completely ready. Because if you wait until everything is perfect, you'll spend your life waiting. I'll stop there for the day because the next principle builds directly on this one, and I want to give it the attention it deserves. The third way veterans accidentally delay financial freedom is financing a lifestyle before owning the assets that can support it. This is one of the easiest traps to fall into because on the surface, it doesn't feel irresponsible. After all, you've worked hard. You've deployed, you've missed birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, and family milestones. You've earned the right to enjoy your life. And I agree with that. The problem isn't enjoying your success. The problem is when we ask our income to support a lifestyle that our assets haven't earned yet. There is a principle that has guided financially successful people for generations. Assets buy luxuries. Income pays bills. Unfortunately, many people reverse that equation. They use income to purchase depreciable liabilities while postponing the acquisition of appreciating assets. Think about how often this happens. Someone receives a raise. The first thought isn't, how can I increase my investments? It's, what can I upgrade? A newer vehicle, a larger home, a boat, an RV, the latest technology. None of those things is inherently wrong. Now, I want to be very clear with that. Financial freedom isn't about living life of deprivation. It's about sequencing your decisions correctly. When your investments begin generating income of their own, you've created something powerful. Now your money is helping buy your lifestyle. Now, instead of requiring you to work for every dollar, your assets begin working alongside you. That's the goal. Every dollar invested today becomes another employee working on your behalf tomorrow. Now, think about that for a moment. Most people spend decades working for money. Financially independent people spend years teaching money to work for them. That's a completely different mindset. One asks, how much can I afford each month? The other asks, will this purchase move me closer to financial freedom or further away from it? I've found that one question alone changes countless financial decisions. Not because it makes you feel guilty, but because it forces every purchase to compete with your long-term goals. Sometimes you'll still buy the vacation. Sometimes you still buy the nicer vehicle. That's perfectly fine. The difference is that you're making the decision intentionally instead of emotionally. Intentional spending rarely creates financial regret. Emotional spending often does. Okay? Now, let's move to the fourth way veterans accidentally delay financial freedom, and that's ignoring the small monthly leaks. Whenever people hear this topic, they often assume someone is about to tell them to stop buying coffee. That's not where I'm going. Your financial future isn't determined by one cup of coffee. It's determined by patterns. Small decisions repeated hundreds of times eventually become major financial outcomes. Now, let's look at a few examples. Subscriptions you forgot you had, memberships you no longer use, paying interest on credit card balances month after month, replacing vehicles every few years instead of driving them longer, making minimum payments instead of attacking high-interest debt, impulse purchases that individually seem insignificant but collectively consume thousands of dollars every year. Here's what makes these leaks so dangerous. Individually, none of them feels important enough to fix, but together they quietly consume the very dollars that could have been invested. Now imagine a small leak in the hull of a ship. At first, it doesn't seem serious. A little water comes in, no panic, but if no one repairs it, that small leak eventually threatens the entire voyage. Financial life works much the same way. It's usually not one enormous mistake, it's dozens of small habits operating in the background without our attention. One exercise I recommend is performing what I call a financial inspection. Just as you wouldn't operate military equipment without conducting an inspection, don't operate your financial life without one either. Go through your monthly expenses line by line. Ask yourself 3 questions. Do I still need this? Does this still serve my priorities? Would I rather have this expense or would I rather have financial freedom sooner? Those are powerful questions, and you'll probably discover money hiding in places you haven't noticed for years. Now I want to share something I've observed through my career. I've seen veterans retire with nearly identical incomes, but dramatically different outcomes. One family steadily built investments, paid themselves first, and made thoughtful decisions year after year. Another family earned just as much money, but every increase in income immediately became an increase in spending. Fast forward 20 years, and the difference between those two families wasn't just measured in dollars, it was measured in options. One family had choices, the other had obligations. That's one of my favorite definitions of financial freedom. Financial freedom isn't simply having more money. It's having more choices. The freedom to retire when you're ready. The freedom to help your children. The freedom to care for aging parents. The freedom to say no to work that no longer aligns with your values. Money itself isn't the destination. Freedom is. And every financial decision either expands your future options or quietly limits them. Let's finish this with perhaps the most overlooked way veterans unintentionally delay financial freedom, along with the mindset shift that can completely change how you think about building wealth for the rest of your life. The 5th mistake is thinking retirement is the finish line instead of the beginning of a new financial mission. This mindset is incredibly common. For decades, retirement has been presented as the moment when you finally stop thinking about money. You save, you invest, you work, you retire, then you simply live off what you've accumulated. There's certainly some truth to that. Retirement should be a season of enjoying the fruit of your labor. But I think many people unintentionally limit themselves because they believe wealth building has an expiration date. Well, you know what? It doesn't. The mission simply changes. While you're working, your primary objective is accumulation. You're building assets, growing investments, reducing unnecessary debt, creating financial resilience. When you retire, the objective shifts. Now your focus becomes preservation, income generation, wise stewardship, and leaving a legacy. Your money doesn't retire just because you do. In fact, if you've built your financial life well, retirement is when your investment should begin carrying more of the workload. Think about it this way, okay? Think about it this way. Throughout your military career, you've trained people to accomplish missions without your constant supervision. You've developed systems, you've built teams, you've created leaders. Eventually, those organizations continued functioning even when you weren't physically present. That's exactly what you want your money to do. You want your financial systems to continue producing results, whether you're working, traveling, spending time with family, serving your community, or simply enjoying life. That's one of the reasons I spend so much time talking about military retirement, VA benefits, investing, and long-term planning. Those aren't isolated topics. They're connected. Every smart financial decision strengthens the next one. Every benefit you understand gives you another tool. Every dollar you invest creates another opportunity. Eventually, those opportunities begin multiplying one another. That's when momentum becomes visible. Now, over the years, I've noticed something very interesting. The veterans who achieve financial freedom rarely describe themselves as financial experts. Instead, they tend to be remarkably consistent. They automate their savings. They invest regularly. They avoid unnecessary debt. They make thoughtful purchases. They continue learning. Now, most importantly, they understand that wealth is usually built quietly. It doesn't happen because of one brilliant investment. It doesn't happen because of one lucky stock. It doesn't happen because of the perfect timing. It happens because ordinary decisions are repeated consistently over a long period of time. That's encouraging because consistency is available to all of us. You don't have to be a Wall Street expert. You don't need an economic degree. You don't need to predict the next market cycle. You simply need a plan that you can follow through good markets and bad ones. Let me leave you with a thought that's becoming increasingly important to me over the years. Financial freedom is not really about money. Money is simply a tool. The goal is time. Time with your family. Time to serve others. Time to travel. Time to pursue meaningful work because you chose to, not because you have to. Time to deepen your faith. Time to mentor the next generation. Time to become the person you've always wanted to become. Money can't buy purpose, but it can create the freedom to pursue purpose without unnecessary financial pressure. That's why I believe financial stewardship matters, not because wealth itself is the goal, but because wisely managed resources create opportunities to bless others and live a greater peace. So as you finish watching today's video, I'd like you to ask yourself one question. Which of these 5 habits has delayed my own financial freedom the most? Don't answer defensively, answer honestly. Because awareness is the first step toward change. And remember this, financial freedom is rarely delayed by one catastrophic mistake. It's usually postponed by thousands of comfortable decisions. The encouraging news is that the opposite is also true. Financial freedom is usually built through thousands of wise decisions that don't seem dramatic in the moment, but become extraordinary over time. Start with one better habit, one smarter investment, one unnecessary expense eliminated, one intentional decision to pay yourself first. You don't have to change everything today. You simply have to begin moving in the right direction. Future you will be grateful that you did. If you found today's discussion helpful, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and share this video with another veteran or military family member who may benefit from it. Every Sunday, we dive deep into military wealth and military retirement, long-term building, and the financial decisions that shape your future. Every Wednesday, we focus on practical strategies you can apply immediately. And on Thursdays, I share stories from my own journey that taught me lessons about leadership, resilience, purpose, and life. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. I never take your time or trust for granted. And so there you have it. I wish you all blessings and blessings. Shalom.